We are not champions, my friends, but we'll keep on podcasting till the end. We come in second. We come in second. No time for winners, 'cause we are the secondary heroes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 56 of the Secondary Heroes podcast. This week, we're going to fill out a bracket to determine what's the best sequel in movie history. This show is Trevor, and joining me as usual is...
This is Prague's clone.
This is Josh.
I'll be dressed like Darth Vader from planet Vulcan for the next 2 weeks. This is DeLorean Wolfgang.
Oh, very nice. You like how I cloned myself, do you? I was so bored.
Clone Wars or something?
No, I was so bored in my quarantine that I decided to clone myself, and it did not go very well.
Wait, are we talking to the clone? Is that why he's talking all weird?
Yes.
His voice is slightly, ever so slightly different.
That's so slightly different.
Yes, that's right. Now, I am the real Prague.
I have destroyed my original copy.
Oh, no.
I am old.
I am much
clone.
better than the original.
All right.
We'll see.
I am better, stronger, faster,
Are you?
everything. Mm-hmm.
Well,
You can't
Like
see
a
it, but
sequel, huh?
You can't.
just like a
Oh,
sequel.
wow.
Oh, like a
Wow.
sequel.
Perfect timing.
Oh.
Wonder how that.
Well, and with the
played
whole sports being gone away, man, we got to figure out other things to do. There's so many memes now with all these quarantines,
right?
so it's fun.
It is gonna be, I think, like the epicenter of memes right now, because you have everyone home coming up with new stuff. It's gonna be like a meme war, I guess. I don't know. It's something interesting.
Meme war.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Dropping
like-
meme bombs out there.
Who's gonna make
There's
the
so
best
many
memes?
different ways to go. You can talk about, being quarantined, lack of toilet paper,
Yeah.
things to do by yourself. It's like there's all these different avenues. You don't just focus on any one.
You never know what's gonna happen.
My favorite meme I've seen so far is a doctor talking to his patient, and he goes, "Hey, you've tested positive for the coronavirus." He goes, "How is that possible? I have 300 rolls of toilet paper at home."
Right? I'm covered. Come on.
No, it got me. It tickled my funny bone, man. I loved it.
Well, apparently, what was it? Yesterday, everyone went crazy over this like marble race online. Like some guy dug a ditch in his backyard and had a race with marbles.
That
And it
was
was like
really
the
fun.
biggest
I
thing.
wanted to do it myself,
And
though.
it's like 5 years old.
It
it's
doesn't
pretty old
matter.
clip.
It doesn't matter.
is-
Like people,
it's
like
been-
whatever
people
can
have time
entertain
now.
me,
People have
Yeah,
time to
yeah,
look at all this
whatever
stuff now.
way. Who cares?
And,
So
and-
that's
but I think the best part about it wasn't even so much the marble race; it was his commentary talking about how certain marbles were taken. Oh, he's taking the lead. Oh, it's fantastic. If you guys haven't seen it, look it up. It's kind of funny that. Yeah. Anyways, well, hey, if you like what you're listening to, check us out over on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for fun pop culture news, episode drops, and secondary interactions with you, our fan. And our fan or fans, multiple fans, I hope.
That's probably right.
And if you haven't already, please rate and review our podcast over on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play. You know what? Anywhere that they play podcasts, review us. That'd be super. We would really appreciate that. And hey, do you have questions about us or what's going on in the world of pop culture? Shoot us questions on any of those platforms that I said above. And we'll answer them on future episodes. Because you know what? All this is free for you and priceless to us.
well said.
Excellent.
Thanks, guys. I kind of been practicing or reading. Either way.
Either way, it shows.
Yeah, but
Thanks,
that's
bud.
that's practice.
I'm glad that Hooked on Phonics worked for you.
Yeah, it's how many episodes? 56 episodes. We've changed it here and there.
A little
Well,
bit.
cool. So we're doing this bracket, secondary heroes bracket of what? So what's this about, Trevor? You want to go into it?
Yeah, what's going on?
So first, we have to pour out a Corona for NCAA March Madness tournament.
Aww.
Turning into March Sadness slowly but surely. But luckily, sports aren't the only game in town. There's all kinds of movies that were released. You don't even have to go to the theaters. These movies have come out over the past. Think how long we've had movies, and there's been sequels almost as long as we've had original movies. And so we wanted to pit them all together to find what is the best sequel ever. Because we're the secondary heroes, we love second place.
We love second place. We love the number 2 because we are not
dropping a deuce.
Oh.
We're dropping a deuce on this podcast right here, right now. So to clarify, people at home, it's not just any sequel. It's a second movie in a franchise, right? That's what we're basing this off of.
Yes.
So
no third movies, no end game, no.
Right. That's
any
a part
of that
2.
stuff.
Yes,
Oh, man.
it's
Only
in
part
the
2.
whole franchise. Yes. So
Yeah, we're focusing on numero dos for all of these because we want to know is the
Trevor
sequel
bilingual?
SOCKS, but is the sequel better than the original?
you had to sneak
And
that in
does
there.
the sequel push the series forward so you actually want to know more? Is it something like that's how we're going to try to rank these movies? So essentially, we've created a bracket because I love saying essentially. And with that bracket, you can hopefully find one of those platforms that we talked about earlier, and we'll post it there. You can follow along, fill out your own bracket, just like it was the March Madness tournament, and you would decide who you think's the best sequel, and then follow along with us to see who we pick and go head to head and see if you're right, agree, disagree. Let us know. Post pictures of your bracket.
Dude, I would actually really love to see how people's brackets end up, because obviously I know how my bracket ends up, but I know that we're also going to
I
discuss
think we know that.
us as a group. Anyways, oops, I just dropped something. Sorry. Let's get to it.
Right. So the toughest part was actually seeding these because, like every year, for example, this year Kansas was number 1 in the country. They're going to be the number 1 overall seed. So they then have to go against a lower seeded. So we have to rank the movies kind of before we go in. Like a lot of people agree that this sequel is great and this sequel is not so good. So that way at the end, we can hopefully have a good matchup on either side of the bracket.
Right, makes sense. You don't want to have like 2 of the best back to back right away. You want to wait for those to trickle down into the middle. So I like it. Where are we going to start this one off, though?
Do we have names for each area? Region?
I wish.
Yeah, we'll make them up as we go.
I know that I can see that we have like a superhero one, and that I think what is that? That's kind of the only one that's.
Well, no, the
superhero.
literary one. So essentially, if you started at the top left is 1, and then bottom left is 2, upper right is 3, bottom right is 4. So 3 and 4, we have 3 is literary and 4 is superhero, and then 1 and 2 both have sci-fi mixed in with other stuff.
This is a mix, a hodgepodge.
all over the place.
A hodgepodge.
Well, actually, it has all sci-fi except for one of them.
So, yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember.
All right.
that.
There's a reason. There's a method to my madness, because as I'm putting these together, I'm thinking of future matchups. So you'll see.
Yeah, no, I can see them already.
And trust me, this is the Sweet 16. We're doing 16. We have plenty of honorable mentions that we'll get to, but these are ones that we actually would like to talk about a bit.
Right. Don't cry if yours isn't on here. We will discuss probably them at some point. And there's honorable mentions, as you said. But these are what we think would be fun for us to discuss, and then we think.
Imagine if we did 64
about.
Sequels.
That
would have been like a 10-year podcast.
Right?
Good Lord, no way.
I mean, it was a tough call not to put Grease 2 in here, but we had to,
And
cut something.
with that one. That was my favorite movie.
Yeah, we had to.
You.
It was tough, man. Something had to go. That was definitely.
Excellent.
So where
do we
we
want to start in the upper left?
Let's do
Yeah,
it.
start
This is
off
the
the
go
left.
the big
Let's
one
go.
here. Let's do this.
Okay, so number 1 in the upper left bracket, we have Empire Strikes Back. And in the number 4 spot, I wanted so badly to put The Last Jedi and just have that straight up comparison. But then that would become a Star Wars podcast. So
Right.
I didn't do that.
That's right. And we do not need that.
Excellent.
So Empire Strikes Back versus Toy Story 2.
That's a huge
Okay.
mismatch right there. I mean,
That's
Oh
the
my
idea in the
God.
opening round.
That's a
It's like a
huge-
1 seed
huge
versus a 16 seed.
mismatch.
Woo!
Well, I guess in a way, yeah, Empire Strikes Back, that kind of is a 1 seed. I mean, there is not one person out there who doesn't think Empire Strikes Back is one of the top Star Wars movies out of the entire series. And
Not
that's
only that,
even the
but
new, old, all.
right, but not even that, but that is usually considered the benchmark for what a sequel should be, right? Because when it came out, not only was it drastically different in tone than the first movie, as Trevor said, it propelled that narrative forward. It created a whole bunch of new dynamics in the storyline. It really took it to a whole new level of just merchandising and everything. So it's going to be a tough one down the line, but I don't think we should give up on the rest, though.
Right.
Right.
That's just my
true.
two
And
So-
we do want to give a little credit to Toy Story 2. It introduced Jesse.
Yeah.
Jesse and Bullseye.
It is my personal favorite, even though I don't remember the story too well. I think they go to the toy store in this one, right? Is that the one where they
Yeah.
go rescue
Yeah.
them?
Well,
Yeah, so
Wood
I remember
gets
some of it, I guess.
Sold
But,
or gets stolen from a garage sale.
right.
And the guy tries to sell him off to an auction or something like that. I don't know.
Right.
And-
So it's the one I like the most out of the three, even though I love all three. I know there's a fourth one, but we don't have to talk about that. But the second one is my personal favorite, but I don't think it can compare to Empire Strikes Back.
Are we all unanimous on this one? Star Wars
But-
is?
Oh, what about Josh?
I mean,
I thought he
I agree with
mentioned.
everybody. I mean, Empire Strikes Back to me, it's like you mentioned though, it's what created the series essentially. Without the second one, obviously there wouldn't be a whole other group of Star Wars movies. But Toy Story 2, I liked it. But in
I
the
think
sense,
it
you know
was-
what,
yeah.
when you try to compare these two, it's simple just to make the Empire Strikes Back obvious winner in this one. But
Yeah, because I put Toy Story 2 on here just because it was Pixar's first sequel. And all their later sequels, like Cars 2 and Monsters University, and they haven't had a best track record of sequels. So
True. Yeah, they're better with just original content, honestly.
shout out to
So-
Onward.
Yeah,
Oh,
there you
yeah.
go.
Speaking of
Onward
which,
too.
it's now the 3 seed versus the 2 seed.
Okay, so we're all in on Star Wars.
Yeah.
Moving on. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And
All
so
right.
this one is a little bit tougher. So we want to continue the sci-fi theme. You have Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and this is the original with all the original cast. This isn't the new Benedict Cumberbatch's Khan or anything like that. Going against Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Okay. This is interesting for me. Because my
interesting
personal
too.
favorite Indiana Jones movie is The Temple of Doom, but I honestly think it's a great movie. I just like it because it was like a big thing when I was a kid and it was like crazy and they ate monkey brains. But Star Trek Wrath, I mean, I'm not even a Star Trek fan, and that movie is so dang good. It'd be hard to argue against it. I mean, it's one of the best movie villains of all time. It has a death of a main character. It's just phenomenal. I don't know. That would be my pick, and I hate to say it, going against one of my favorite movies.
Was Christopher Lloyd in that? Wasn't Christopher Lloyd Khan?
No.
That's Ricardo Montalban.
What?
I think it's
Christopher
actually-
Lloyd played. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Yes.
Who played?
I'm
Khan?
pretty sure Khan.
What movie are you watching? What are you
Yeah.
thinking?
I swear to God, who played Khan? Then please tell me.
I don't know the actor's
Said
name.
it. Ricardo Montalban.
There you go.
Oh,
I forget the guy's
okay,
name,
thank
but there you go. But it's not him.
but
What's
I
really
know-
impressive
okay,
though
I know
about
that he
Wrath of
played-
Khan is that it ties into the original series. Khan shows up in one of season whatever, just a regular 30-minute episode, and to
Right.
then tie because the first Star Trek movie is pretty bad. Like
Yeah.
whatever it's called,
Unwatchable.
it's like Star Trek the
Star
motion
Trek the
picture.
movie. Yeah, the motion picture,
Yeah, it was not good. So to have a sequel that then actually spawns all then they had Search for Spock and the one where they go swim with the whales and all those different ones that they do. It's
Well,
all because 2 is good.
Right. No, that really, like you said, it really propelled the franchise.
Mhm.
Really expanded the universe and everything there for them.
and that's
Indiana-
one thing that Indiana Jones I didn't feel really did. It didn't propel anything. It actually felt like the Indiana Jones Temple of Doom could have almost been just its own movie with
movie.
yeah.
Right.
I mean, they introduced all these new characters. They got rid of a bunch of characters. It was
Well, here's
pretty
the
much
thing about Temple of Doom is that it's technically a prequel. It's not a sequel. Even though it's the second one in this franchise, it actually takes place before the events of the first movie, which really confused audiences. They probably did the same thing you did. Like, where's all these characters I was introduced to in the first movie? That's because
What?
it's past. I just blew your mind, son.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a prequel.
It's like Monsters University.
Yep. Second movie is actually a prequel.
Oh my god.
Oh, I know, man.
All these years, dude. I
Yep.
honestly, I just thought it was the second movie. And
Yep.
you blew my freaking mind.
There you go, sir.
Well,
Yeah.
If Temple of Doom was the first one, I don't know if Indiana Jones ever gets to the pop culture phenomenon that it did.
No, there's
they
no
have
way.
a lot
That
of
movie
movies
is
nowadays.
way too weird. That movie is way too weird.
They always use the second one to backtrack and tell you the story before everything.
we're going to need to do a vote, though, because we got a lot more movies to get to. My vote is going to be Indiana Jones because I do find it to be a more entertaining film.
Wow. I mean, I find it more entertaining as well, but as a sequel, Star Trek 2 is just the better sequel. I mean, it's such a great movie for what it does. But I agree, it's more, I can watch Temple of Doom anytime. But that's
It's
not
kind of like I wish we had a fifth person because I'm going to go with Indiana Jones as well.
What? Oh no.
I just have a feeling that Trevor might go with Star
I'm going
Trek.
with
that's
Star
why.
Trek because
I know,
just there's
that's
so
what
many
I'm saying.
iconic lines. I mean,
That's the
just
problem.
like
What do we
Prague
do
said,
now?
you have Spock actually dying in that film. You know, one
It's
of the like
crazy.
second main character of the movie, and then he says the good of the few, or the good of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. And then you also have the whole Genesis system and just the whole ship battle in space is one of the best ship battles ever because it's like a naval battle, but they actually use 3D space. You know, most star-based movies always are stuck in this 2D plane, even
Right.
though they
Can't they be
can
above
move
the line,
every
right?
direction. This movie actually takes advantage of that.
So remember,
I
this is
hate to
not
say
about
it,
what
man.
you like better. It's about what is the better sequel. I'm just saying. That's how we're doing this bracket. It's just FYI. Not to sway you necessarily. I'm just saying.
You're going to say it, or
Josh, you're going to have to change your mind because I'm not changing mine.
you know what?
I don't even
I'll
remember
change my
anything that
mind.
happened
You know
in
what?
Temple of Doom other
You know
than the
why?
annoying
'Cause I would
kid
like to
yelling Dr.
see-
Jones.
Dr.
I would like to see Star
Good
Wars
stuff.
versus Star Trek.
Wow. All
You know
right.
what?
There we
I
go.
think that-
Nice.
You got
You know,
Han
I'd like to see
Solo
that.
versus Indiana Jones?
Well, it's another thing. Why do I want two Harrison Ford movies against each other? I might
See,
as well
I set
have.
it up so either way it's a good matchup.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we're going to be here all
Fine.
day, just kind of.
Fine. Take your
If
Star
it was
Trek.
Last Crusade, it would have been a tougher choice for me because Last Crusade is absolutely amazing.
Oh, I love that movie.
And I
God,
and I tell you this too, DeLorean. It's like Star Wars is going to move on, past whoever makes it to this
No,
next round, anyways.
Fine.
God!
So, yeah, let's let Star
Whatever.
Wars beat Star Trek then. Well, okay, so Star Trek wins that one.
Call him Dr. Jones.
So then we'll move on to the bottom left, lower left. And so we have two creature things that are like green, maybe kind of.
These
To
are
me,
your
this is a
creature
Cinderella
features.
movie right here. Cinderella story.
Yes.
Cinderella.
This is the ultimate Cinderella. This is like George Mason going against Duke. We got Aliens, one of the most well-known sequels where it's a completely different director that rebrands an entire franchise against Shrek 2.
So you have Mike Myers,
Eddie Murphy, Cameron Diaz.
and Cameron Diaz. That's
Antonio
that's
Banderas
the big three
joining
right
in
there.
Puss in Boots.
Antonio Banderas. That's a huge lineup right there. It's like, how can you do better than that?
Well,
I'm
here's
sure
the thing for Shrek 2. Yeah, it also it progresses the story. They go off, they're getting married, they're looking, and like hijinks ensue. But I mean, it is a continuation. It's a straight up continuation of the first movie.
Right.
So
It doesn't really break
Aliens, as
bones, though,
fun
either.
as it is, I mean, is it?
I'm saying Shrek 2 didn't really do much to further the franchise. It was just a continuation of the story, whereas Aliens completely rebranded the narrative in the same universe by taking
And
this
the
movie that used to
style,
be
too.
yeah, it used to be, it was the first movie was straight up horror, slow paced jump scares. The second movie is straight up action. I mean, it is just balls to the wall action left and right. You drop in all these army guys that come in there just like loaded to the teeth with guns and ammo and flamethrowers and all sorts of stuff, right?
Game over, man.
Game over. We're all gonna die, man. We're all gonna die. It's a great movie. And he shows his cards. And all he likes is
Shrek.
Shrek.
The whole
The whole
series.
series on Blu-ray. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're not watching on YouTube, Josh just pulled up his entire Shrek series box set on
He did.
Blu-ray. Very beautiful.
Shrek 2
Josh.
does have Jennifer Saunders singing "I Need a Hero" in one of the best renditions of that song ever.
100%. I am with you.
It's also a movie
completely.
that most people forget was even made until you mentioned it. Like, oh, that's
Shrek
right. there
becomes
was
a human in Shrek 2.
That's right. I forgot.
But then becomes an ogre again.
Yeah, and then it goes back to ogre-ish.
And his
Oh,
wife
But aliens,
becomes happy. Think of Shrek ahead of its time. His wife becomes happy in her own skin. You know,
mhm.
she doesn't
good
have to be
story.
the fairy tale
You guys
princess
really
anymore.
want this Cinderella story to happen. You're
That's
just
why I
missing one of the
mentioned
great
that.
action films of all time to try to get.
Okay, so
It's
this is
forgetful
how I'm gonna look at it.
Yeah.
If I'm flipping through the channels and Aliens is
Shrek
on
2.
and Shrek 2 is on,
Shrek's-
I'm gonna watch Aliens. I'm watching Aliens over.
Shrek because I need some laughs.
So I'm going Aliens on this one.
Oh, it's just too iconic of a sequel. It's too important of a sequel too to have a different
No,
director.
Shrek, right? Iconic.
It's iconic.
I'm glad we agree on
Josh, something
something.
was bad.
We're talking about all those memes starting off. I mean, Shrek's pretty hot. He's not SpongeBob hot, but he's
That's
right
true.
up
He's
there.
pretty hot with memes. Yeah, that's for sure.
That's
He's
the
memeing
thing is
pretty
like
hard.
Shrek. Yeah, Shrek is like he's still all over the internet. Like Aliens, yeah. I mean, you're hitting a nostalgia factor on that one. So maybe I might have to change over to Shrek because Shrek is the problem is Shrek is still like think about it.
Relevant.
I'm not thinking about it because there's nothing to think about.
Maybe,
I'm
let
not.
me just
I'm
say
more, I'm
this.
more intelligent.
I
I
than that.
can't believe
Does
that we're
Aliens have a
really gonna-
musical? Does Aliens have a
over-
musical?
I'm sure they
Yeah.
Shrek does. So, I mean, come on. I mean, it's
We
that
are gonna
successful
lose-
that it.
So many listeners.
Shrek has 30-minute spin-offs that are like holiday themed. Aliens doesn't have that.
Talk about Shrek 2, so
Well,
yeah,
let's go around here. Let's put our votes in. I'm putting my vote in for Aliens. FYI.
So you're sticking with Aliens, Doran?
I don't know now. I don't know. I think you guys almost talked me into Shrek.
How?
You know what? Screw
Shrek
it.
has the best parts.
I'm doing it.
Going Shrek?
I'm doing
All right.
Shrek.
Wow.
Screw it. Oh, man, I
Okay.
can't believe you just picked Shrek.
No, I'm
Go
picking
again.
Aliens. I'm just messing around. It was like that
Oh,
game where
man.
it's buzzer beater. The favorite actually wins with a 3-pointer right at the buzzer.
Wait, so Aliens ends up moving on?
What's
I'm
up to
picking-
you?
Well, I mean, I was gonna
You can
pick.
pick whatever
I was
you
gonna
want.
pick Shrek,
So,
but I was just expecting you to change your mind.
Alice's favorite movie of all time. So how do you vote against it? I don't know.
I
You
just
know
wanted to
it's by
see a
heart?
Cinderella story right here.
I don't know if I want this to be the Cinderella story here. There must be another one, another bracket.
I don't see
I don't know. I'm just
another-
saying.
Oh my god, dude, this is.
Can't.
Why is it up to me? Because this sucks.
Oh, I changed my mind the last one. That's why.
Ooh. You don't have to. We can make
Well, we
it
could
still
change
make
y'all's mind, Trevor and Prague. Then
true. I don't know how it's
No,
gonna happen.
No, Prague's not changing his mind. He
I know
thinks
Prague's
it's
not.
one of the best action films
Oh.
going up against Shrek.
you see, that's
In
where you
terms
should've
of
put
my
Shrek at that.
criteria, Aliens wins. Like, this goes back to Prague saying he likes Temple of Doom better than Star Trek. I like Shrek 2 better than Aliens in terms of rewatching it, but
Yeah.
Aliens means more for the franchise and for film direction and sequels in general.
It's true.
Yeah, I could probably pop on Shrek anytime, but Aliens, I gotta be in the mood. I gotta be in the mood for like gritty action and blowing up stuff. So, but it's just a better choice.
But it's not which one is more watchable. I mean,
Exactly.
unless that
Exactly.
if that's a
It's-
part
That's
of
a different bracket.
Exactly.
Dude, I thought this was going to be a bit easier, but seriously, we really do need a fifth in case of ties. Well, shoot, Shrek. It moves the story along.
I know it.
Sorry, moves
Moves
the story along.
That's not what the designation.
It does.
We'll just
I
leave
don't
that one as a tie. Then you can think about it once we come back because we got to move
All
on.
right, we gotta move on. All right, what's next?
So now we have
Oh,
one of the most
boy! Oh, this is gonna be down
overrated
and dirty.
sequels
You
of
did
all
this on purpose.
Oh,
Oh,
give me a
man.
break.
You put
versus a
these two
sequel
together on purpose.
that's. So these are both time travel movies. We have Back
This
to the
one-
Future 2 versus Terminator 2.
We need to call in a friend.
I absolutely. Oh, why don't we call in a friend for Aliens versus Shrek 2?
We have to think about this for a second. Let's
Oh,
stay with
wait.
this.
Let's go back and go to back to the next one.
Okay.
Oh my god.
So we
Starting
know
on
what
this
Alex
one.
is picking.
Here's the thing. Terminator 2 is one of the great. Like, I absolutely love Terminator 2. But I own a DeLorean. I've got a hoverboard right there, man.
Would it be sacrilegious of you to vote against it?
It would be sacrilegious. Back to the Future
But
ones.
let me ask you this: is it your favorite movie of the three?
No,
Right.
it's the
Oh,
weakest.
okay.
of them.
Well,
That's where
there it
Alex
is. There it is. I made you say
He
it.
said it.
It's the
Yep.
weakest.
Frog
What?
got you to say
Without-
it.
Yeah. What? I've said that 1,000
No, no,
times.
no,
I
but my
know, but
point
in
is-
terms of this conversation, Terminator 2 is the best Terminator movie.
Oh, yeah, it might be the best Terminator movie, but that doesn't mean that all Terminator movies are good.
Yeah, but we have
That
so this
out here.
sequel is the
All
best in
Back
its
to the Future
franchise,
movies are good.
and that sequel is the worst in its franchise. That's all we're comparing.
The worst of the franchise, which is still just
A
the
great
most
movie.
perfect
I don't know about
franchise.
perfect. That's a good movie.
You can't change my mind on this one. Terminator 2 is wonderful. It's great. But Back to the Future continues the story. Without Back to the Future 2, you can't have Back to the Future 3 because it leads straight into that. And it makes Back to the Future 1 better.
I always thought that Back to the Future 2, it just was Back to the Future 1 with like 20 minutes of future.
Of future, but you see Back to the Future 1 in a totally different angle.
Right.
So you get to
That's true.
see the movie in a different angle and you get to relive those moments and go, oh, wow, that person over there, oh, wow, all this stuff that also happened behind the scenes of what we didn't see in the first movie.
You
Yeah, and
have a series-
Terminator 2 is awesome. So cool. I'm going Terminator 2.
Back to the Future 2.
Terminator 2,
Uh,
like, really redefined everything. It took the person who was the villain in the first one and made him the hero in the second one by reprogramming him and sending him
You know
back.
why? Because they wanted to make Arnold Schwarzenegger a mega star, so they turned him into a good
It
guy.
changes
It
the
worked.
whole narrative.
It did change
Yeah.
the whole narrative. It's
I
fantastic.
mean, I don't know. I mean, I like Terminator, but I really like Back to the Future 2. That's my favorite one out of the series or the trilogy, you want to say. So, see,
But
this is where
Terminator
it's tough,
2 was
man.
so good that they literally have been unable to make another one after that because it was so good. It was like the pinnacle
Yeah.
of like action
Just-
movies.
Having the actual Terminator 2, the T-1000, is amazing. Regardless of Arnold Schwarzenegger, the liquid
you could even have-
Terminator is super amazing.
If Arnold wasn't even in this movie, it would be fantastic.
What you guys are doing right now is trying to change
Him
history,
going-
right?
Him going down into
Yes.
the lava pit at the end and saying goodbye after he becomes friends with the little kid.
Yeah,
Who's
tell me you
actually
didn't
John
cry.
Connor, who's actually born, who the whole entire movie is based on John Connor for the first one. And this one builds it out into him actually being a
real
physical representation of the future in the present of the time.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. See, I set this bracket up so we had 2 James Cameron movies going head-to-head in the second round with Aliens and Terminator 2. That's how I set this up.
That is
And so you would have Shrek versus Back to the Future. That's fine, but that's not on this bracket.
Hey, so far those two are undecided.
You guys talked me into voting for Shrek. So
I mean,
we're not going back to Shrek. We're doing Back to the Future versus Terminator right now.
Terminator's a bigger sequel meaning for the franchise than Back to the Future 2.
We're not telling you to vote against the franchise of Back
This
to the
isn't
Future.
watching ability or likability or your favorites. This has nothing to do with it. This is becoming an objective observer of what it. So all of these movies, luckily, we have like 20, 30, 40 years to see their impact going forward.
Yeah, Terminator 2 is iconic.
Yes, 30, 40 years, and people are still clamoring for another sequel.
Right? I know, exactly.
Back to the Future.
And they can't.
Yeah, they want more Terminator.
They can't do anything right with Terminator.
Because Terminator 2 was so good.
Back to the Future trilogy was so good that people still
talking
want it
about the
30 years
trilogy,
later.
though.
Yeah, we're not talking about you got to throw 1 and 3 out.
Without the second, you don't have a trilogy.
Well, by numbers, by math, but
By
not
math.
necessarily by the movie constructions. You could take out 2 and it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, you can easily go into 3.
No, you can't. How do you
Yeah.
go into 3? Maybe if you added the few scenes, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. You just go back.
If you took
Back
out
to
a
the
Terminator 2, there's no Terminator franchise at all.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which that's how we're
Proceed to
ranking.
make our
We're
point.
seeing important movies. That's what we're trying to do.
You
We're
guys
trying the
are
best
trying
sequels.
to convince Josh at this point. So Josh,
No, I'm
No, I
convincing
think
Alex.
no.
This
No,
is
well,
fun to
you
convince
changed my
Alex.
you're not going to change my mind from my absolute favorite
But your
favorite
least
trilogy
favorite
of all
movie
time.
of the 3.
And it might be my least favorite of the 3,
Is
but
that because
that's my
you said
opinion.
it's the weakest
That's not
of
the world's opinion.
by
The world
definition.
thinks 2 is the best.
Oh.
I'm
I
going to
think there's
start
some-
making some
something
phone
about it.
calls, and we're gonna
You better phone in some friends, man. Someone who
phone in
doesn't
friends with this
For one of
stuff.
these movies, you gotta find a bipartisan contact to phone in for this. And Josh, you're sticking with your Back to the Future 2, huh? Even based on the
Josh, you're a good man.
It's just, I mean,
Overwhelming
I get what you're saying though in regards to Terminator 2 being the film that propels that series to where it's at today, I guess. But it's just, I mean, for me it's hard because Back to the Future 2, I guess that's the tough part. It's like I have a personal attachment to it more than I am towards
theaters.
Terminator. Because Terminator, I mean, to be honest, I'm not a big fan of a lot of it. I like the films, but I'm not to the point that, I would watch Back to the Future over Terminator films. So that's why I have to stick where I'm at. That's the tough part. And again, we have to.
Amazing, because this is our podcast. Me and Prague focus on like movies and how they're made and like the greater scope of movie making. And then Alex and Josh are like, I like this.
I like it.
No, I mean, and that's the thing though. That's the thing though. I mean, these brackets are
That's
made
fun. I
on
know.
our personal preferences.
These are
And
all
that's where
personal
it's kind of
preferences.
hard when there's 4 of us to debate it, because there's gonna be some films
But we
that
set the ground rules to start with, and you're
Yeah.
going against the ground rules. I mean,
Right.
by that, Toy Story 2 might be more watchable than Empire Strikes Back. Even though
Right.
Empire Strikes Back is maybe the best sequel of
Well,
all time. I mean, if you go by personal preference or
It's not about
some random, yeah.
If you're about preferences, I would have chosen Temple of Doom easily.
I mean,
'Cause I can watch
to
that
me,
movie
it's just, in regards to pop culture, Back to the Future's, to me, at least from my perspective, not so much personal perspective, it's a huger impact on pop culture than Terminator is. I mean, you hear more references towards, Back to the Future in regards to like shoes, futuristic things, the hoverboard, the DeLorean. There's a lot more attraction, pop culture wise, to Back to the Future than it is to Terminator.
I would agree to that to some extent, but I do think that we're talking about the movies themselves, not necessarily their effect on pop culture, but to the series. And I do think that Terminator 2 is just a better constructed, filmed, shot, CGI'd everything film than Back to the Future 2. So
Well,
I'm trying
Josh,
to think
what
of
do you
it that way.
You too. That's fine. We're already at 35 minutes. So Next up, we have our literary
Woo!
bracket,
Still
which
me.
is the upper right. And with the upper right, we have one of the most influential sequels ever created against one of my favorite franchise. This is my absolute favorite franchise. Oh, I love Back to the Future. I own a DeLorean. Well, if I could own any car, it would be the damn SUV from Jurassic Park. I'm not picking the
Then
Lost World
do it.
over Godfather. Okay?
Yeah, because Lost World didn't propel the
Lost-
story at all. It didn't do anything for the series.
We should probably tell our people, listeners, that what we're doing right now. We're doing the Godfather Part 2 versus Jurassic Park: The Lost World. Just
And
FYI.
I think, and
I
I'll
had quite
preference
an
this is
introduction.
that the last 4 films that we did were a little bit more tougher than all these other ones, at least for us. I mean, I'm pretty sure like these next ones we could knock out pretty easily.
Hopefully,
I don't
we'll
know
see.
about that.
See what happens.
I
We'll
think
see
so.
what happens.
I
think
don't
so.
think if this one goes long.
It might go a little long. Yeah, I mean, this one for me is going to be pretty easy. The Godfather Part 2 is so iconic as a.
Yeah.
I mean, most people consider it to be far superior than the first one. Like that never happens with sequels. Sequels are usually different or more fun or take it in a new direction. But like when a movie is when the second movie, like just what we talked about with Empire Strikes Back, is considered the better than the original. I mean, that says a lot about the sequel. You know, a lot happens in that film that kind of changes the whole story of this family. So, and then Jurassic Park: The Lost World. Yeah, I don't really remember much other than it was a kind of a fun movie that I watched a couple times, maybe back
There's
when I was
the
a kid.
terrible sequence where the little girl does the gymnastics and kicks the raptor
and
out the
kicks
window.
like 700-pound
forgot
raptor
about
out
that.
a window.
That was his like daughter or something, or what would I don't know.
They do have the cool scene where the RV is hanging off the cliff and they're
That's the
falling on the
scene I
glass
remember.
and they're about to
That's all
break.
I remember.
That's a
Through
cool scene.
them while they're hanging on.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite part of the whole movie is the T-Rex roaring and San Diego skyline is in the background.
I always forget that even exists in that movie, the whole San Diego part.
I do
Because
too,
that's
I
when it
forget.
goes off
whole-
the rails.
The whole movie is
Yeah, it's like,
trying
oh,
to
screw it,
capture
let's just put 'em on
dinosaurs
mainland.
to put them at the San Diego Zoo. It was going to be
No,
an
I know. It's
extension
just
of the
I
San
forget
Diego
that
Zoo.
part where the T-Rex is walking through San Diego, where he's licking
What?
up the pool in the backyard, and the
Not even
dog looks
San
at him.
Diego. Like none of that is shot in San Diego. The only thing is that one scene where he roars and you see the skyline of San Diego. The rest is filmed in LA.
What I think to Trevor's point is it's that forgettable that you don't even
No,
remember
of
the
course.
coolest part of
Yeah.
the movie. You don't even remember. So, yeah, I think it's an easy one for me. I think I'm picking Godfather Part 2.
Yeah,
I think
Godfather
I'll
Part
have
2,
to
that's-
as
that
well.
was pretty easy.
I've never even seen it, but
Well,
it's-
just let me put Godfather Part 2 in perspective. You have Robert De Niro playing Vito Corleone when he's young, and then, I mean, he's doing his best Marlon Brando impression. And then you have Al Pacino actually becoming super dark as Michael Corleone before he has his brother killed. Like,
Yeah, that's pretty good.
really super dark and amazing acting in this movie.
So it's easy peasy
Yeah.
on that one.
It's going to be tougher when it gets down the road against other stuff, is what Godfather.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's a Godfather Part
Yeah.
3. But let's move on.
So we have Battle of the Books, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets versus Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers.
Yeah,
And so
kind of.
Try to look at this as just the movies and not the book.
I know, it's true.
I get what
Right?
you're saying here.
Because
this
the books
is where
would
I
be
could
easy
be
for
a little
me.
bit more torn apart with this. You know, as much as I like Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, that it just I guess in regards to the second one, just helped people that didn't watch the movie or read the book. Sorry, it helped them get more into the Harry Potter series, and then from it going from whatever so many other movies beyond that, it just became such. I mean, it goes back to pop culture. It's huge. The Lord of the Rings, it's more niche than more anything is.
And not at
So,
the
I
time,
mean,
though.
I don't know about not the time, but in regards to the
Well, remember, we're not
the
talking about
longevity of it.
its effect on pop
But the
culture. We're
longevity of
talking
a
about
series,
the
though.
actual sequel. Yeah, well, how does
Yeah.
it do for the sequel? That's a good point.
That's what I'm saying. That that didn't really.
So I'm torn because obviously I love Harry Potter, but we're not talking about the books. We're talking about the movies.
Mm-hmm.
Between the two, I definitely like the Two Towers more than Chamber of Secrets. Chamber of Secrets is kind of forgettable in the series for me.
Really?
Yeah, I like parts of it. I like scenes in it a lot, but I think overall it's not the one that I can rewatch as much as the other ones. That's just me. I prefer the first and the third. Those are my favorites. And then I also like I always get it mixed up because I like the book but not the movie, and the movie not the book. I don't know. Anyways, it's one of those things. We're not talking about books, but I think that the Two Towers for the Lord of the Rings films kind of propelled it because it had like the big battle scene that really got people wanting to see what that was like on screen, and we never seen anything like that before. And it, I don't know. I think it propelled that series more so than Chamber of Secrets. I think if we were to talk about what movie in the franchise actually propelled Harry Potter, I think it would have been the third one that Alfonso Cuarón directed. Really? That really changed the whole kind of feel and vibe, and most people consider that to be the best.
Opposite of everything.
No,
especially when 3 came out, it was like a total epic failure in the Harry Potter franchise. Maybe looking back on it now, but it was a big stumbling block for Warner Brothers.
It didn't make a lot of money, but I know that most people consider that the best in the franchise and still do to this day. And I can see why. It was definitely the most radical. It changed the whole feel of the.
It turned it away from being Harry Potter. That's exactly what 3 did. And all of them followed up where magical wisps fly out of your wand. Guess what? Magic doesn't become lights and like oozing stuff flying out of your stupid wand. It ruined all the movies after it. 3 sucks. We're not talking about 3.
So we're
talking about 2.
Right. So you just proved my point, just like we did with DeLorean. You proved my point. It did propel it forward. It may not have been the way you liked, and I didn't like it either. I didn't.
Oh, are we talking about propelling for good or propelling at all? Like, are we talking about a boat that drives me straight into the ground, or are we talking about a boat that keeps me upright on the surface?
We're talking about any kind of boat you want.
Any kind of propulsion, huh? Even if it's... So if I'm a plane and I'm flying along just perfectly fine, and then I'm propelled straight into the ground and I blow up and die, that's better propulsion than a plane that keeps going but it's not going as fast. That's what you're going with?
If it makes Warner Brothers a ton of money, then yeah, it does. I might not like those. Those movies did. Everything after made a ton of money. All those Harry Potter.
Really?
Money.
Only the 7 part 1 and part 2.
Oh, there you go. You have to get to 7 part 1 and part 2.
Well, that's because of the books and the climax of the whole series. There was a dip with the Triwizard Tournament. Like, Triwizard Tournaments failed so bad because they had to switch directors because 3 was so dumb. But we're not talking about 3, Frog. I don't care.
Such a great... For all the listeners at home, we know we like 3. 3 is a great movie.
We're talking about Chamber of Secrets, which
Chamber of Secrets was...
Josh was saying was that it brings the books to life, and it actually gets the idea of people investing in the franchise to make this is actually, I can watch the movies and they're an alternative to the books. That's what 2 does.
You don't think that happened with the first movie? Because I think that happened with the first movie.
I think the first movie was kind of like the first Lord of the Rings.
It was like an appetizer. Just to get
It wasn't the insatiable, like the first Lord of the Rings is pretty, Fellowship of Ring is outstanding, but it doesn't, at the time, it didn't like, oh my God, it launched to 200 million opening weekend. It's like some new Avengers. That's not how Lord of the Rings was. And same with the first Harry Potter.
Don't have the box office numbers in front of me like you do, so I can't speak to that. I'm just thinking of in terms of narrative right now.
Well, in terms of narrative,
yeah, I don't know.
In terms of narrative, Return of the King is so good in the Lord of the Rings franchise that you forget even Two Towers existed. It's like a bridge movie you could skip.
No, Two Towers. If you watch Two Towers, I originally thought that until I started rewatching the Two Towers, and I actually prefer the Two Towers to Return of the King. Just FYI. Right. Yeah.
Nice.
Just saying. It's a better film.
I'm gonna head out.
How about you, Alex?
I'll go Harry Potter.
Let's go Harry Potter. Move on. Because you guys are all wrong.
No, I think Lord of the Rings is better in this breakdown. But Harry Potter 3 sucked. That's what we got distracted to.
I know. It's a great movie.
How about you, Josh? What do you think?
Okay, where are we at right now?
I'm Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings.
Wait, no, who's got what?
Everyone's got Harry Potter but
Lord
me.
Of the Rings, and Alex has Harry Potter, and I have Lord of the Rings.
Oh, you did choose. Okay.
I'll go Lord of the Rings.
Oh, surprise! Yeah.
I can do either one of them. I don't really have no.
Argued with me for like how long?
I don't have no attachment to either one.
I was talking about 3.
I really have
when we
no
talk about 2, Two Towers is better than Chamber of Secrets, but it's close.
Okay.
And the book is better of Chamber of Secrets. Book is a rereadable book.
Oh, I love that book.
Okay.
We're not talking about books though. Yeah, that's a book. I agree.
Before we move on to the last bracket, I got to jump back over to Aliens, Shrek, Back to the Future 2, and T2. I texted friend of the show, Corgi Commander, and I didn't give him anything. I just said, here's the 2 movies. Which one? Out of Aliens and Shrek 2. Huh?
Did you say the ground rules?
Yeah, you just said the
No,
ground.
I just
Changes the whole basis of the conversation.
Nope,
he chose Aliens.
And
then
they don't like that choice. They don't like that choice.
Back to the Future 2 versus Terminator 2. He chose Terminator 2.
Yeah, I'm okay with it then. Let's go.
The Terminator 2 moves on.
No, go tell him the ground rules first.
Well, Corgi's a big Aliens fan, so he does have bias there. But I agree with
That's
him.
fine.
I agree with that.
I just want to get moved on this.
Screw the ground rules.
There's just so many
Let's
more to
just
go.
go with it. If we get into one of these messes like this again, we'll just shoot that text out, and whatever comes up, comes up.
Okay, sounds good. So now we're into the superheroes bracket. We have The Dark Knight versus Spider-Man 2. And this is the Spider-Man 2 from 2004. Just a heads up.
Okay.
So do we like Batman versus Joker and Heath Ledger's performance and Christian Bale's Batman, or do we like Tobey Maguire and Spider-Man versus Doc Ock?
Well, I just think it's The Dark Knight is so it's such an iconic Batman film. I mean, to me, it started the whole, liking villains in a sense. I mean, to me, that's what my attachment was to that film, and to a lot of other people that watched it. And I think for the series, it's unfortunate that it ended after Dark Knight Rises, and then a new Batman came. But I think for number 2, what made that series what it is.
It made Christopher Nolan a household name. People didn't even know he directed the first one. They're like, oh, it's some Batman movie, great. And then this movie came out, like, oh my god, who directed this amazing masterpiece of cinema? Oh, Christopher Nolan. Like, I don't think that happened with Spider-Man 2.
Yes, this series for Batman is interesting because Batman Begins is really good, but it always flies under the radar. People kind of dismiss it offhand entirely.
It's a fun movie.
And then The Dark Knight Rises is actually not that good.
No.
And it's a really weird.
But it's also not that bad either.
Right,
I mean, it's
bad.
watchable. It's more watchable than Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man 2 is the best of those Spider-Man movies.
Which is saying a lot for that franchise.
Dude, are you
it did introduce people to Marvel film or characters.
A lot of people really love this film. And
those Sony Spider-Man movies made mad bank at the box office. I mean, Dark Knight made mad bank, but people love Spider-Man.
That's all we had. We didn't have what we have now. We didn't have Avengers. We didn't have all that.
Do you argue that if those Sony Spider-Man movies don't ever exist, that people don't have that appetite for all superhero movies? That we have a million superhero movies now.
At least with Marvel wouldn't have been as intrigued to want to start the Avenger films or Iron Man and so forth.
The whole So it's if you just focus on Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3 with Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man sucks. Especially because of Spider-Man 3. But if you this actually then spawned Iron Man, and we got Spider-Man Far From Home, and we get Thanos actually showing up on screen with that awesome introduction of everybody through the Doctor Strange portals, all from this movie, but then that's a big, huge pedigree thing.
That's also a bit reaching too. We don't know, I don't know. My
on the DC flip side of things, after the Dark Knight, they've tried to grab that dark, gritty style that Christopher Nolan did, and they failed every single time.
Every time.
You said death correctly.
I think Wonder Woman was probably the best one out of them all so far, and that was a bit.
Yeah.
No, I know. With the amount of movies that came out, Wonder Woman was probably the best. But Dark Knight, I mean that for me, it changed Batman and the way that I looked at DC and Batman and stuff like that. I mean, even the Joker alone. God, you couldn't walk 10 feet in Comic-Con without someone dressed up like Joker. Right. That movie had such. I mean, if we're looking at pop culture wise, yes, Dark Knight just was fantastic. That was amazing, and it propelled the story as well. Spider-Man 2. That's a movie that take it or leave it. It's not doing anything to any story. I mean, nothing really changes. It was such a mess of a movie.
No, Spider-Man 2 isn't a mess. Spider-Man 3 is a mess.
3
Spider-Man
is-
2 actually shows Peter kind of breaking all of his like existing bonds because this is an older Peter in these Spider-Man movies. This isn't high school Peter.
Right. This is
and
It
so-
is. It's a different one.
Yeah, it kind of changes him. And Doc Ock, just credit this, he's a great villain. And the guy who played him in this Spider-Man 2 did a really good job. He's not Heath Ledger Joker, but he did a good job of what Doc Ock is to make him actually compassionate for killing people or whatever he's trying,
Right.
Yeah.
But
The
I
thing is-
think Franco ruined that movie for me too.
Yeah.
I think Franco was a tough watch on that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I just included this in here for the greater scheme of Marvel movies.
Well, you know, and
Because
I
Dark
think-
Knight is the way better movie. It's
Yeah.
not even this is Dark Knight's going to be down the road. But now that we're talking about it, I'm worried about how Dark Knight does down the road just because it doesn't have that lasting impact that some
That's
of these
true, it
other
doesn't.
movies do.
Because it kind of just
Yeah.
fizzles out after
It's
that.
a standalone amazing creation.
Right.
And if Spider-Man actually created Avengers Endgame, it is going to actually be the biggest influence on here.
It actually influenced one of the ones that we'll probably talk about a little bit
but
later.
but does it
Yeah.
because Spider-Man 3 was so like I don't know hated by fans
Yeah, it
that I
broke
wonder
the Sony Marvel connection that allowed
Yeah.
Marvel to kind of weasel their way out of it to create a different thing with Paramount.
so I'm almost thinking Spider-Man 3 is more
Influential because it was so bad
Yeah.
it messed up everything. Yeah,
that's
I
what
see.
I'm thinking. Yeah. I'm gonna say The Dark
There
Knight
you go.
is my choice.
Yeah, Dark
Yeah.
Knight.
Yeah.
Dark
That's in
Knight.
there.
Okay, easy, let's move on.
Okay,
Oh man,
so-
I was not expecting these to take that long on this first round.
Well,
I thought
that was a
gonna
good
whiz right
comparison,
by-
though. I mean,
Alex, I told you
Yeah.
this is gonna take a while.
I was not expecting it. You're absolutely right. I
Yeah,
didn't
there's-
realize we were all gonna have very strong opinions
Us?
about. Well, no. I thought that we would have
Do you
very
listen to our
similar.
podcast?
I thought we were gonna have similar strong opinions.
Oh, you do
So-
not listen to our podcast. That's
Let's
good to know.
move on.
So to round out this bracket, we have the 2 and the 3 seed, which is always close. We have a more modern movie versus an older movie. We have Captain America: Winter Soldier against Superman 2, and this is the original Superman 2 with Christopher Reeves.
So I hate to say it, the only thing I know about Superman 2 is from what they say in Office Space. Oh, so that's like the plot of Superman 2. Yes, exactly. So I might
Never
have to
seen
be
Superman
counted
2
out.
with Zod and the whole Superman losing his powers and everything. Okay.
No, sorry guys.
I personally love Superman 2. It's one of my favorite Superman movies. So
Well,
But
it's
Captain
the best
America-
Superman movie.
it is the best Superman movie. It's just one of those movies that I can watch
That
over
is
and over again
true.
because it's so
Jeez.
much stupid fun. It's just fun. It's just like, come on, the guy looks
There's
like
over the top
you know,
acting and just
it's
so
so over
much
the top.
sensationalism that fits in with Superman because
right.
Superman
He's
doesn't
so
need to
goody
be
two-shoes.
gritty and real. He's a larger than life figure. That's why they never know what to do with Superman in new movies. They're like, what do we do with the super most powerful thing we could possibly create? Here's kryptonite. And that's every single Superman movie storyline.
And it introduces Zod.
Yeah.
But it's just the most fun. It's the most fun Superman movie. It's like what a comic book movie should be. He flies in with the American flag and everything. It's just great. It's a great movie. But you have Captain America: Winter Soldier, which really, if you want to talk about changing, not just his movies, but the entire Marvel MCU franchise. I mean, I know we're not talking about that because we're talking about a sequel to the first Avenger, but still, that's a monumental movie.
If you take the first Avenger, it's a perfectly fine movie. It's not particularly
Yeah,
good
it's
or bad.
watchable.
Kind of
It's
just there.
watchable.
And that first Captain America, it fits in with the first Iron Man, even Iron
Yeah.
Man 2 and Thor, and it fits all in those lines. Winter Soldier is a completely different movie, like Prague said. It's
Yes.
like,
Mhm.
Like, what
It
am I
gave it
watching?
life.
Oh my
It gave it
God.
that
Yeah,
series
it's
life.
like
yeah, it
so
changes
cool.
what you think of Captain America. And then it also, the Russo brothers, this is their first introduction to the MCU, and we see what they get to do down the road with Avengers and all of those team ups.
Yeah. What about you, DeLorean? I know you already said your piece because you didn't watch Superman 2. So never mind.
Yeah, I'm gonna put my vote on Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I am too. Even though I love
Same here.
Superman 2 so much, it's a better movie. Yeah, it's a better sequel.
Because
And
I think
it means
I think
more
you
too for the entire franchise.
And
It
that
really
was the
does.
thing that I was thinking. At the end of the day, like that, it's a puzzle piece and a giant puzzle. In the giant Avengers puzzle, you need that puzzle piece to finish it all and to put it all together. So I'm going Winter Soldier.
You know, Superman 2 is also impacted what happened to Christopher Reeves. The future of that franchise and all the future Superman movies they could have done.
Yeah, if that stuff didn't happen to him, how?
Yeah. So,
would be
I mean,
different.
that's completely out of his control. I mean, it's the same thing of what
Yeah.
happens to Dark Knight if Heath Ledger doesn't pass away too. Or
Yep.
not too.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. There's
So
your
Captain
first
America.
pick.
So we
Thanks,
have our
man.
Elite Eight, and I kind of want to split this into a two-parter, but also we've said our piece about all of these movies, so now it's more just
Mhm.
choosing them. It's not going
Yeah.
and debating them again, right?
No.
I mean, it kind of can be a little bit.
I mean,
It can be,
It
because
might
now we
be
have
because when you're looking at it, when you're looking at the list here, a lot of these are
well,
like
these are big boys now.
these are
Yeah.
this is gonna be a real slobber knocker. I tell you what, boys.
Slobber knocker.
We can split this into two parts, and
I think we should and bring somebody on as.
I
a
think
fifth
we need
person.
to. I think we turn
Yeah,
this into a
you know what?
two-parter. Bring in a fifth wheel.
That sounds
the
good.
bacon.
I'm in agreement. Do we all vote yes on that?
we're voting
We
yes.
need to do some research.
Yeah.
We actually were unanimous on one pick.
Yes.
Yeah. We did it, guys.
Cool. Wow.
Oh.
So,
We beat
everybody,
boys.
hopefully you're subscribed to our podcast on wherever you listen to podcasts so you can hear part 2 of our determining our bracket for the best sequel of all time. This is a Secondary Heroes podcast. We hope you enjoy what you're listening to, and we'll talk to you next time.
Frog out.
See ya.
Foods you'll stop eating after you know how they're made. That's your clickbait of the week.
Mm-mm.